Celebrating 49 years on the air, award-winning Farm Week is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, a Halloween theme. Just what is corn and why is it so popular? Plus, we go way back with Southern Gardening investigating a crape murder. And candy corn, a Halloween treat. Everything you ever wanted to know about it. And in our encore feature, it's a howling success. But not everyone's happy. Farm Week starts right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. Great to have you with us again here on Farm Week. Happy Halloween. This week, with Halloween a couple of days away, an encore discussion of corn. It's a regular on the show with supply chain and weather issues, the price jumping up and down like soybeans. Corn's a valuable asset, but why? Here's a special report Zach produced to answer the question, what is corn?
Corn, a common sight in ag country. You can travel miles and see nothing but graceful stalks swaying in the breeze. In Mississippi, it's the fourth highest commodity, with over 129 million bushels produced in 2021. Not only that, but nationwide, U.S. corn growers produced 15.1 billion bushels last year, according to the USDA. So, what makes this plant so unique? What exactly is corn?
Corn is a temperate plant that is grown in areas of significant rainfall, but moderate conditions overall. It likes mild temperatures, plentiful rainfall, but not abundant rainfall like you'd have in tropical regions. And it's an annual grass plant, which means that we plant it in the spring. It has a relatively long growing season. It's about 120 days or about 4 months in length. It's planted early in the spring. It grows through the summer. And in Mississippi, it's harvested late in the summer. In areas, other regions of the United States, it would be in the fall.
Like most row crops, corn has several growth stages experts refer to. VE through VT measure the plant's growth from seedling to fully grown and tasseling. R1 through R6 are the reproductive stages that produce the corn on cobs we're familiar with.
A corn plant is unique in that it has a separate male and female part on the plant. The tassel is a male part that sheds the pollen, and the ear contains silks which receive the pollen and are basically the female organ on the plant. Corn is somewhat unique in that it cross-pollinates, so the neighboring plants actually provide the pollen in many cases to pollinate the ears on the plants in the adjacent rows. So that's why you oftentimes need to plant more than 1 or 2 rows in your garden, because you need some physical space in order to facilitate the movement of that pollen to the ears on a separate plant in order for it to pollinate.
There are many kinds of corn varieties, but the one most commonly grown in the U.S. is not what you'd find in the grocery store.
Most of the corn that's grown in fields is what we call dent corn. It is developed because it produces a lot of starch, has a good feed value. Ears of corn that you would buy at the grocery store is going to be sweet corn. The type of plant is the same, it's just bred for a different purpose, and it has completely different characteristics as far as the kernels and the content of those kernels. It has less starch in the kernels and more sugar content, more water, and it just tastes better. It's a lot more palatable to humans. Sweet corn is picked during the middle of the reproductive stages, before the kernels are completely mature. Corn that is harvested for normal use, you let the kernels completely mature and then actually dry down to a moisture that is suitable for long-term storage for use in bins and other facilities that hold grain.
So, the vast majority of corn grown in the U.S. is used as animal feed, but there are some other well-known uses for corn, such as ethanol or biodiesel, corn syrup, a common sweetener, and the starch itself, commonly used in cooking. But it's not just feed and industrial use that makes it popular. It also works well with other crops.
Corn is used in Mississippi primarily as a crop that complements our other two primary row crops in Mississippi in a crop rotation system. So corn is used and is grown in a field one year, and then we rotate that field the next year to cotton or soybeans generally. So that helps eliminate a lot of the pest issues, whether it be weeds, diseases, or insect issues. It eliminates a lot of those, or greatly reduces the likelihood of those being a significant problem. Plus it has a significant benefit to both of the crops involved in the rotation system, which enhances the productivity of those crops as well.
So, what are the major problems farmers face when growing corn?
Corn is a little bit unique in that it is much more sensitive to what we call stand issues or emergence issues. Not only do we have to deal with having restrictions to plant the crop, but corn is very intolerant or very sensitive to issues that, where we lose a certain percentage of the seedlings that don't successfully emerge, or they're delayed and stunted during the planting process, and the management and environmental restrictions that occur shortly after seeding the crop.
Corn is a valuable ag commodity, not only because of its versatility, but because with a little care and good weather, it can produce an abundance of grain.
It's a productive crop too that produces a lot higher volume of grain than a lot of our other row crops that are grown. Not only is it a high quality source of feed, it produces a high volume as well.
So, that's corn, a major player in the ag markets, grown all over the world, valued for its high output and many different uses.
In keeping with this week's theme, we go way back in time. The CSI Horticulture Unit is investigating a heinous crime against botany. Today, Gary Bachman, see how far back we go, looks into multiple cases of crape murder.
Every year, a horticultural crime spree occurs, and that means the Horticulture CSI unit is back in action. At this time of year, we see countless cases of murder, and crepe myrtle is the victim. I'm going to share some pruning tips with you to keep you from being the perp. We see this crime against horticulture all around us, where someone has hard pruned their crepe myrtles to control their size. The trouble is, crepe myrtles are extremely resilient to being butchered. They bloom on the current season's growth, and the bad pruning is glossed over, not to mention the gross and large knots on the branches. And let's face it, just because you can, doesn't make it right. Here's some tips on how and where to prune your crepe myrtles. First, decide if you even need to prune. Start at the base and remove any suckers. These will always grow whether the tree is pruned or not. Remove branches that are growing back towards the center of the canopy. Also remove branches that are crossing or rubbing against each other, cutting back to a larger branch. Remove seed heads in late winter or early spring only if they're within reach. Once the tree becomes a tall, mature plant, allow nature to take its course. It'll be okay. If you'd like more information on selecting the proper size, pruning, and feeding of crepe myrtles, see the Mississippi State University Extension publication, Crepe Myrtle, Flower of the South. If you use these pruning tips, you can stop the crap and save the crepes. I'm horticulturist Gary Bachman, and I'll see you next time on Southern Gardening. It's okay, buddy.
We'll take a break right here, but don't go away. Coming up in our Farm Week feature, it's an ecological success story, but not everyone's happy. 50 years ago, wolves had all but disappeared, but the Endangered Species Act led to a comeback and ultimately to a common battle, ranchers versus wolves. Some say it's time to take wolves off the list and let ranchers help with population control. But the law says otherwise. A no-win situation? We look closer, coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations, and their faith. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance toward the views of others. I believe that education is a lifelong process, and the greatest university is the home. That my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
Walk across the great state of Mississippi with us. Join the Walk Mississippi and Live Healthy, One Step at a Time program. The Mississippi State University Extension Service is offering this virtual challenge for individuals of any age or teams of family, colleagues, students, church members, or any other group. We're walking 180 miles in 6 weeks, or about 8,000 steps per day, from October 11th to November 21st. Get fit and feel better. Eat healthier, manage your weight, and exercise regularly. There's no fee required, and you'll join our virtual community support group on Facebook and our weekly email list to get health education tips, nutritious recipes, and video demos. Fit more physical activity into your schedule and learn more about the benefits of eating healthy. Visit msuext.ms/walkms to learn more and register today.
Time for the market report, going a little special for Halloween.
We look into two iconic Halloween traditions, one a commodity, the other a candy. To guide us through it all is Farm Week's Bella Bingham. Bella?
Thanks, guys. In our first story, this time of year you can't escape them. Pumpkins. They're everywhere, and why not? There's a lot more to them than meets the eye, and we take a deeper dive into what makes them so special.
It's a symbol of the fall, seen everywhere during this season, the pumpkin. It's used for decoration and food. But what exactly makes this gourd so special? And how do we come across so many this time of year? Historically, the pumpkin was cultivated by Native Americans alongside corn and beans. This trifecta of crops tended to work well together, and the meat of the pumpkin, that is, the inner flesh we make pies and other foodstuffs out of, was found to be a nutritious means to survive the colder winter months. Planting pumpkins can occur either in the spring with summer squash, melons, and cucumbers, or they can be planted in early summer, which is the case with pumpkins used primarily as jack-o'-lanterns. They grow similarly to squash, their cousin, and can cross-pollinate with it and other gourd types. Illinois is the #1 pumpkin-growing state, by far, growing nearly twice as much as any other state. And the village of Morton, Illinois, calls itself the pumpkin capital of the world. It's also home to Libby's, the best-known pumpkin puree in the grocery store. Market-wise, the pumpkin is considered seasonal, which means that it's not normally measured in year-round sales. 90% of pumpkin-based products are sold from October to January. In 2023, the top 6 pumpkin-producing states harvested more than 1.2 billion pounds of pumpkins. Pumpkin prices tend to vary by state, with Illinois generally having the lowest price. This is due to their pumpkins mainly being grown for processing and not for decoration. In the weeks leading up to Halloween of this year, average wholesale pumpkin prices ranged from $157.50 per 36-inch bin for Howden pumpkins, the variety most commonly used to make jack-o'-lanterns, to $212.50 per 24-inch bin for pie pumpkins, and up to $350 for specialty varieties like mixed heirloom pumpkins. In the third week of October this year, the average retail price per Howden pumpkin was $6.21.
Another spooky season staple with ag origins we commonly overlook is candy corn. You know fall has arrived when it shows up on store shelves, but where did it come from and why is it such a staple?
Corn made of candy. What a concept. It's been a Halloween tradition for decades, and like fruitcake at Christmas, it has its staunch lovers and haters. But how did this iconic fall sweet begin, and how did it become associated with Halloween? The story of candied corn goes all the way back to the 1880s. According to the National Confectioners Association, a Wonderly Candy Company employee named George Riniger invented the confection. The Golitz Candy Company, now Jelly Belly Candy Company, started producing candy corn around the turn of the century and continues the tradition today. In those days, the cooking process was done by hand. Sugar, corn syrup, and other ingredients were cooked into a slurry in large kettles. Fondant and marshmallow were added to give a smooth texture and bite. And 45 pounds of warm candy was poured into buckets called runners. Men, called stringers, walked backward, pouring the candy into cornstarch trays imprinted with the kernel shape. According to Dr. William Kerr from the University of Georgia, the uniqueness of candy corn's flavor and texture are one of its most polarizing qualities. Flavor-wise, it's close to a buttercream, and its texture falls between a soft and a hard candy, basically making it a firm marshmallow. The classic look of this candy is a tritone triangular-shaped kernel. The colors are supposed to match the colors of a real corn kernel as it can be found in the field. Yellow at the top, getting darker as it goes towards the tip, and milky white at the tip itself. A callback to the agricultural basis of this candy's creation. As a matter of fact, the candy was originally called chicken feed because dried corn kernels were most commonly associated as animal food. Not too off base, as most corn grown in the U.S. these days is still used for that reason. So, how did it become associated with Halloween? Well, it has to do with trick-or-treating, especially in the 1950s and 60s, when handing out candy in individual wrappers became popular. The confection was already associated with the fall due to the corn harvest, and when it showed up in trick-or-treat bags, that's how the connection was made.
By the way, October 30th is National Candy Corn Day, so go have some. You might find you like it. Happy Halloween, everyone. Guys?
30 years ago, I reported on a project in Colorado called Mission Wolf, working to reintroduce wolves to the wild. So I'm particularly interested in this next story.
Wolves came close to extinction years ago, but it's a different story now, and one with people on both sides of how to manage the species, including ranchers who want to protect their farm animals. Colleen Bradford-Krantz has more.
Once upon a time, there were two groups of predators who constantly fought over the same prey. They battled one another for generations until, finally, one pushed the other out. Over time, the winning predators began to miss their enemy. Some helped their former rivals return to the once contested forest and fields. And now, it only remains to be seen if they can live side by side.
While it may not read like an old storybook, Michigan wildlife biologist Brian Roll keeps a list on his computer of important wolf dates.
We actually, throughout the early 1900s, killed every wolf you see. They were a bounty animal. All the way up to 1956, we felt there was probably fewer than 100 wolves in the Upper Peninsula. And just 4 years later, the whole bounty was actually removed from the state of Michigan.
By the end of the 1960s, gray wolves had all but disappeared from the region, with one small pocket remaining in northeast Minnesota's Iron Range. In 1966, wolves were listed under the precursor to the Endangered Species Act.
As things changed, both ecologically and socially, people started to realize that predators were an important part of an ecosystem.
By the 1980s, wolf populations began to rebound across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Roll says exceeding planned population goals should have resulted in wolves being removed from the endangered species list. Instead, a series of administrative changes in answering lawsuits have meant the wolf status on the list in Michigan has whipsawed, changing 7 times in an 11-year period.
So it's been this yo-yo movement that I don't think has helped wolves. All it does is build this animosity that we can't do anything. We can't protect our own livestock. We can't protect our pets.
Roll says when those lawsuits succeed, the rare wolf found hunting lambs or calves can only be dealt with through non-lethal means. Nearly all of those measures eventually stop being effective.
If we could empower the farmer to do some of that work. It grants wolves, some approval rating that I can deal with that. But when they're this hands off, that even though they're killing cattle, I'm not allowed to kill that wolf, that creates the animosity. And what they do is they tell their neighbor tells their buddy, and then it just snowballs. And so people have this belief that, wolves are rampantly killing livestock, which isn't the case.
250 miles away in Minnesota, wolf numbers are climbing and territory is expanding. The state estimates the wolf population now numbers more than 2,800, about 2/3 of the total in the western Great Lakes region. One research team is getting up close and personal in Voyageurs National Park near International Falls, Minnesota. Their trail camera footage has helped draw attention to the wolves' gradual return. Unlike in Michigan and Wisconsin, wolves in Minnesota are listed as threatened rather than endangered. This allows government officials to use the last resort option of killing a wolf, known to be causing repeated problems with livestock.
When wolves are causing problems by eating sheep or eating cattle or hunting dogs or pets, which they've been documented to do, no one wins, right? It's a problem for the owners of those animals. It can be an economic problem. Wolves don't win because often USDA Wildlife Services will come in and trap and lethally remove wolves as well to mitigate that conflict. So I think everyone has a shared interest to minimize that.
Wildlife experts have a range of non-lethal options, including guard animals such as dogs, donkeys, and llamas. If those fail, streamers, lights, and alarms could be used to frighten wolves. But none of these work every time.
You have folks who raise livestock who think the only good wolf is a dead wolf, and you have folks who absolutely enjoy and are thrilled by wolves on the landscape where they're operating.
Cattle producer Keith Carlson is learning to coexist with the wolves, which have returned to his Sandstone, Minnesota farm, about an hour south of Duluth.
As a youngster growing up, if we ever heard of or seen a wolf, it was very, very rare. It was probably in the past 20 years or less that we've started to have to deal with wolves that are in this area. There's many producers or ranchers throughout this area that have had wolf problems. Within the past 10 years, it seems to have gotten even worse.
Carlson says the challenges are offset a bit by government reimbursement for livestock killed by wolves. However, the evidence must be clear that a wolf was responsible.
Last summer on our ranch, we had 5 confirmed wolf kills, and I'm saying we had 8, but we couldn't prove the other 3. But we do have agencies that work well with us help verify that it was a wolf kill.
Carlson says Midwest residents are being misled when a population goal is met, but doesn't result in delisting.
They all came to an agreement, which that's kind of what's frustrating for us.
To me, it opens up attacking the whole Endangered Species Act. And I certainly don't want to see major changes made to the Endangered Species Act because of one species. When you look at wolves in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, it should be a celebration of the Endangered Species Act, not used as a tool to keep them perpetually on the list.
A divisive issue.
Well, next week we announce this year's Mississippi Tree Farmer of the Year.
The 2025 winner is unique. We did some research and no one has heard of a tree farmer quite like this one. 1,300 acres total, about a third of it used for recreation.
It's one of the premier sites of its type in the Southeast, drawing visitors from several states. Are you curious? The 2025 Tree Farmer of the Year. That's next time on Farm Week. Before we go, imagine creating a boat out of a large pumpkin and then trusting it to float with you in it.
That was the mission for one of New Hampshire's quirkiest traditions, the annual Giant Pumpkin Regatta.
Mike Moses was there and brings us the Gourd News.
Every fall, the Piscataquag River through downtown Goffstown turns into a racetrack. for one of New Hampshire's quirkiest traditions, the annual Pumpkin Regatta, which turns giant gourds into makeshift boats.
We put them in, you ride them, and we remove them.
Jim Helene and his volunteer river rats get these oversized vessels in and out of the water.
It's amazing that this many people show up to watch people paddle a pumpkin.
The pumpkin needs to weigh at least 1,000 pounds or more to support the weight of a person for them to get inside, then navigate around the river. Do they get wet?
Yes, we can just about guarantee that every year.
Hello, welcome to Wonderland.
This year's event had a Wonderland twist with paddlers in costume and boats decked out, but organizers say the real magic is how the community comes together every October.
To see people shopping and coming out of the village with smiles on their faces has just been phenomenal.
Go! Burgers! Dogs!
Beyond paddling the pumpkins, they carve, eat, and even drop them from nearly 200 feet.
How cool was that?
That was wild.
And back on the water, Crystal Delahanty crosses the finish line as the winner.
It's close there at the finish. How did you pull through as the winner?
I couldn't feel my arms, but there was no way I was letting him win. I'm way too competitive.
That answer comes with some shiny hardware and a whole lot of gorgeous bragging rights.
I'd have fun with that.
So would I. Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. See you next week. Happy Halloween.